Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, thank you for tuning in today. So obviously, happy Friday, everyone. No, it's not Good Friday, is it? I don't know. Friday, Easter, and then it'll be a whole good thing. So obviously we have a show today, and we will have a show Monday. I know that some institutions take those off, but not Computer America. We are tireless, working 4 hours to 5 hours a week. We cannot be stopped. So with that being said, everyone, welcome to the show. Today on the program, we have none other than Derakhshani. He is our resident computer graphics expert, and that includes everything from CG, CGI to rendering to just any monitors, building PCs. He's kind of our hardware guru at this point. Just anything and everything. This is very happy to talk with him. So everyone, if you want to find out more about today's show, feel free to check out computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find links to any articles that we do, links to any videos that we show, links to any products that we talk about. Anything and everything can be found at our website. While you're there, also check out the articles. We have a new review going up this weekend about the Glance clock. It's a unit that is completely self-contained. It's a wall clock, but at the same time, it's internet connected, and it will actually display your schedule on the clock itself. It's very cool, and we definitely enjoyed reviewing it, so check that out this weekend. Now, all that being said, why don't we go ahead, bring on our guest, and get today's show started. So as I said before, Dariush, he's worked on a number of Hollywood projects and a lot of projects, and of course now he's a teacher. He teaches CGI, and he comes on Computer America, to kind of do his day job and help explain the world of CGI to our audience. So Dariush, welcome back onto Computer America.
Always a pleasure to be on. Thanks, Ben.
Our pleasure. Hopefully you're doing well. And yeah, so obviously, just how have you been before we get started?
Good. Thank you. I've been fencing again, so my body is completely wrecked currently, but I've been doing very well. Thank you.
Fencing. So obviously, I assume the one with the pointy swords, and not the one with building fences. So
exactly, with the pointing swords.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I'm fencing at one of the schools I teach. Much younger, more flexible youngsters tend to beat me up a little bit. It's tremendous fun.
Yeah, no, I had a friend in high school who was on our fencing team, which I didn't even know we had until I met him, and it always looked like fun. It's just not. I don't know. I guess it doesn't get the same publicity as, like, let's say soccer, football or something like that. But very athletic. So kudos to you, definitely. That you will get a workout.
Yeah, that's for sure. Just had one last night.
Okay, perfect. So, all right. Now, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and let you introduce yourself? I gave you a little bit of a background, but why do you enjoy coming onto the show and talking about hardware and graphics and things like that? I mean, what's your interest in all this?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much how I make my living, but it's also really it's fun. It's interesting. I like being on both sides of the coin, the receiving side where I'm watching things or playing things, and also on the creative side where I'm helping create some of that content, whether usually commercials and TV, but some films and things like that. So it's I like to see how the sausage gets made in a
I
way.
gotcha.
So I like to share that with people as well through teaching and of course through correspondence.
Right. Perfect. So, okay, and you sent over a list of topics. Again, these can be found in the show notes over at the website, but I'll let you kind of decide where we start. And yeah, please, just where are we starting today?
Absolutely. Well, we've been talking about ray tracing and NVIDIA for a while, specifically about how ray tracing is becoming a little bit more part of the overall gaming experience. And
Right.
there's another nail in that coffin. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but that's another chip on the board for this thought because NVIDIA is delivering drivers for previous generation cards for ray tracing.
Hmm.
So maybe it's not limited exactly to RTX cards, which I imagine are going to be a little more efficient and better for
Right.
that, but at least you can have some tracing once games and more software supports it, of course.
Right, and I guess making it backwards compatible, even to a smaller extent, will
Right.
I'm betting
Mhm.
for Nvidia's sake, hopefully encourage people who make games and those who work on the graphics of games to implement it, even if they think that the audience is so small that let's say
Mhm.
let's say that Nvidia just ships 100,000 graphics cards. That means that the possible audience that would take advantage of all the work that goes into real-time ray tracing would be 100,000 people if every single person who bought a card bought their game. But I guess if they make it backwards compatible, boom, you have tens of millions of potential people utilizing the technology. I assume is kind of NVIDIA's angle.
Absolutely. It's a smart move and making it more available to people that may not have this new hardware is going to be a way to push the developers into getting ray tracing. And again, it's a absolute no-brainer. A while ago, HDRI became sort of one of these things that was a big quality step. Ray tracing is going to be so much more than that. And I think games that really want to push the envelope of how they look, this is a super easy, well, not easy, but super straightforward decision to make to push that. So I think this is going to help enable anybody that's still on the fence about whether putting in that development time is worth it or not. It's definitely going to help that decision be made.
And just poking through the article here, I think it said something about the 1060 being the lowest it goes back to. But did Nvidia kind of say how far back this goes, or how backwards compatible this technology will
Um,
be?
yeah, I believe it's just going to be for Pascal generation. I don't think it's going to go further than Pascal, at least for now. I figure the overhead is going to be too much for a lot of cars that don't specifically have that instruction set, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Oh, yeah.
But it's nice to see. I mean, so that would mean the last generation that just came out. So how much further? I couldn't tell you, but
Right.
I can't imagine it would go more than that one,
Right.
maybe two generations. But I don't think even two will make it.
Makes sense, makes sense. And I guess there's one part here that I just saw in the article. One of the key points NVIDIA wanted to get across was that ray tracing can be very scalable, where obviously completely like every shadow and every light source and
Hmm.
every bounce that doesn't have to be it's not on or off. I guess is what they're saying. It can be mostly or only some. It's so even lower graphics cards like the 1660 could have at least some elements of ray tracing.
Right. And if you look at the frame rate chart where it it compares some of the frame rates towards the I think the bottom of the
Sure.
article, it shows you just how fast the 2080 Ti is
Yeah,
when
sure.
you're comparing it against the 1080.
Sure.
And
I'm
again,
sorry.
the 10 series, that's the Pascal chipset. So when you go into the lower end cards like the 1060, you're barely going to be in the teens of frame rate. So actually, is it in that?
Might be
Uh,
in this video down here at the bottom.
yeah, I think it's in the Eurogamer
I gotcha. I gotcha.
link.
So,
Actually, it's the not
oh
the
yeah, yeah.
Tom's Hardware.
You're
So
right. You're
this
right.
one
You're right.
has a chart. If you want to take a look at that one, I'm gonna copy and
Yeah.
paste.
No. We got it, and here's the
Oh, there we go.
yeah overall frame rate, and you can kind of see it there. Man, I'm sorry for making you repeat yourself, but this graph is showing exactly what again?
So basically, that'll show frame rate, and you can see how far behind the 1080 Ti even is when you're comparing it to the 2080 Ti. Um, so going back further into the 900 series or even the 800 series of cards for ray tracing is just not going to be worthwhile.
Right.
So I think that generation, the tens, is probably as far back as ray tracing support it is going to go. But of course, I'm not 100%
Well,
sure.
I mean, if the GTX 1060 is pulling 4 frames per second in like the lowest percentile, and then the best it can do is 17, 18, then
Right,
yeah, I bet
exactly.
you anything below that just it'd be like a PowerPoint presentation, a decent looking PowerPoint presentation,
Right.
but not anything you would want to play games on. And again, just looking at this chart, one thing I'm kind of surprised at is even the latest and greatest of the graphics cards, the RTX 2080 Ti, and there might be like a new Titan that might be a little bit better, but this one it can't do 120 or 144 frames per second, which a lot of monitors for at least people who enjoy video games or just just general usage, 144 hertz refresh rate seems to be kind of like the next big upgrade that we would encourage people to upgrade their monitors for. So, and it can't even pull that right now.
Yeah. Ray tracing can take hours per frame. I've had projects I've worked on where we're rendering HD content that have gone into 30, 32 hours per frame to render. So ray tracing can be, and again, it was a very super complicated scene with a lot of geometry and things going on in it. Games are much more efficient than that, but it is very complex. It is scalable. You don't have to have every single shadow and every single reflection necessarily, but it is a complex sort of thing, and it takes a lot of power to be able to do that. In addition to smart programming and instruction sets that are going to be more efficient than just brute force
Right.
work.
So, and talk about just real quick. I mean oh my god, I definitely had a point here. Talk about the importance of benchmarking outside of because when these cards first come out, AMD, Nvidia, I'm sure Intel with their processors,
Hmm.
all of them come out with their own benchmarks that saying that they're 30% better, 20% better. But then as soon as they hit the market, or these benchmarking organizations come out,
Hmm.
they rush to get their own benchmarks out. Why are third party benchmarks so important?
Because the playing field needs to be level. For example, I have an electric car that has a certain mileage attributed to it,
Hmm.
and getting that efficiency, the weather has to be perfect, the road surface has to be perfect, your tire pressure has to be everything has to be perfect. You can't have the AC on. All those things have to line up to get that mileage. And in real life, I get nowhere near that mileage because I drive like I live in LA. I drive aggressively, and it's not always perfect, and the roads are not always perfect, and my tires aren't always perfect. So your experience, your mileage may vary, as the saying goes. Your experience is going to be different based on the rig that you have, based on the software that you've got installed. So when a manufacturer shows its benchmarks, it is very, I don't want to say stacked or anything like that. I'm not certainly not saying that, but it is in the most favorable of conditions. So third-party benchmarks kind of take that out of context and level the playing field a little bit more, and don't take a lot of, well, let's make sure that this is the motherboard and that's exactly the voltage and yada, yada, yada. In the end, what you get at your computer for your games is your experience. And the better marker for that is going to be some third party and outside benchmarking, which is still going to be a little bit different than what you're going to get at home anyway, but it is going to be closer than what the marketing and the testing departments of that manufacturer are going to be able to give you, which,
Right.
while honest, usually are definitely under the best of circumstances for their specific hardware.
Yeah, and that's something that I really wanted you to highlight because the first one that comes to mind is, of course, AMD came out with their processors, and they were saying that it's 40% faster, 60% faster than Intel's, but it was for software that was specifically tuned to take advantage of
Right.
the 18, 24 cores, whereas when you compare to just say an average video game that you would play that would take advantage of maybe 4 to 6. It wasn't better, but in ideal conditions, like you said, it definitely did. So that's why we're kind of gushing over these benchmarks. And by the way, Eurogamer did a really good job, going through these benchmarks and comparing all the different kinds.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. It's a good article. It's a good read.
Yeah, for sure. And so with that being said, looking at this, and I know later on in the program, we're going to go ahead and, talk about building a new PC, and hey, we'll probably get into, some of our favorite hardware, but just all this being said, with backwards compatibility and ray tracing coming to non-RTX cards, budget-wise, obviously it would behoove someone to go a generation prior, but what do you recommend for, kind of future-proofing yourself?
Future proofing, then you're gonna want to shell out the cash and get the latest greatest 2080 Ti card.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think though you can save a little money and go with the regular 2080. The performance increase is pretty good. It's about a 15% over the 2080 non-Ti version, but certainly going with the 80s is better. Going back to the 1080, I think it's better to spend the money for the 20s. You can probably get into the 16, but you're going to lose the built-in ray tracing support. So I think, if anything, if you want to save some money, is I wouldn't buy anything right now. If that's the case, I would hold off until the 2080 Ti becomes a little bit longer in the tooth and maybe becomes the previous generation, when, I don't know, the 3080s come out, or the 2180s, or however they're gonna name those, because we're literally in a new generation of what we can expect from video games, and I think it's still early enough where you're not going to miss out on ray tracing so much. So if you can hold on to the graphics that you've got now, you're going to be sitting pretty. You're not going to be missing a whole lot. But in the next year or so, I imagine a lot more games are going to be supporting ray tracing. I think that's probably when, if you're very budget conscious, when you'll probably want to jump into where the 2080 Ti is now as a previous generation, to save that money and still get pretty good performance with the new feature sets that are coming out right now.
Definitely seems like it. And the only thing I'm kind of picking up from the benchmarks here for anyone out there who is simply listening and not watching, highly recommend you go out and check out the articles. But it looks like if you're thinking of the RTX 2060, maybe the 1080 Ti, if you can get it for cheaper than the 1060, the ranges seem to be fairly compatible with one another. But other than that, any 2080 is going to outperform any 10 or any 20 series is going to outperform any 10 series. So. Other than
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's interesting to see the 1660 coming in less powerful than the 1080 Ti.
yeah,
So I always say get the best video card that you can afford. But again, with this new feature of ray tracing, hopefully taking a much bigger hold, it might be a wait and see situation if you're budget conscious.
Yeah, and I'm trying to recall because there's an article the other day that and we're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 next. If I'm not sure if you saw the, I would say the rumors, but they were talking with an executive who's in charge of the hardware for Sony for the next generation console. So it's as close to a rumor as you can get. So it was the PlayStation 5. They came out and they're coming out with ray tracing. But here's the thing. AMD is supplying all of the chips and graphics cards for PlayStation or for Sony and PlayStation 5. So AMD is getting into ray tracing. I just want to know off the top of your head, it's okay if you don't know, AMD's stance on ray tracing. Obviously they want to get into it with the PlayStation 5, but have they made any mention that like, hey, on our current card you can do ray tracing or things like that?
For real-time gaming, I don't believe you can do real-time ray tracing as of yet. I mean, this needs to be supported in software first. All these cards can. It's a matter of efficiency and being able to hit a good frame rate.
I gotcha. So, and as I said before, we're going to go ahead and switch on over to PlayStation 5 rumors. Not really going to point to anyone in particular. Just pulled up this random article from Tom's Guide. We did another one back on Tuesday, I believe, where when this first came out. And first things first, we're going to hear a lot about this E3 2019. So, hold on to your seats. And PlayStation 5 is not slotted until probably next year sometime. So don't get your hopes up this holiday season. But I wanted some of your first instincts because obviously when you come on the show, you have workstations. You test, amazing laptops, the best of the best. Gaming consoles, I've never really heard you be that excited about. But I wanted your reaction on some of the upgrades that PlayStation is going to upgrade to.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to put in my 2 cents. Yeah.
And just right off the bat, I mean, first of all, gaming consoles, how do you feel about them before we get started?
Well, I have a 12-year-old, so we have gaming consoles. We have a PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. I think they're great. I think they're a great deal of fun. I don't get a whole lot of time to play, but my son is glued. He just got a new game and he's glued to it. So I think it's fantastic. I mean, we'll PC game together and get online and do that. It's a little easier for like Rainbow Six, my favorite game, to use keyboard and mouse for that. So I prefer that sort of interface with my game console.
Well,
yeah,
you
I'm
may be
kind of into games.
Yeah,
maybe
you
not
may be in for a
too
surprise because I believe Xbox has tapped into Razer. They make a lot of peripherals for PC. I believe Microsoft tapped Razer to make the first Xbox compatible mouse and keyboard, so you can use a mouse and keyboard with your Xbox console. And I would not be surprised if both the next generation PlayStation and Xbox come out with a keyboard and mouse or keyboard and mouse support that you can use. So, yeah,
I'd love to see that. Honestly, yeah, it would be great to play Rainbow Six on my 60-inch TV and not my comparatively dinky 30-inch monitor.
Wow, you poor thing, 30 inches. Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
with that being said, let's get into the PlayStation 5. And again, these are kind of what the executive who's in charge of the hardware and kind of the prototype of the next generation console. The first things first, he said, was that PlayStation 5 will be upgrading from a traditional hard drive to a solid state drive. I don't expect you to hate that. I expect you to say, "Oh, finally! I can't believe it took this long."
Finally. Absolutely. That is, as you and I well know, that is the number one upgrade that you could have for any computer. And consoles are computers, my friend.
Yeah.
They just are. Exactly. So it is the absolute best thing you can do, and SSD prices have been plummeting lately. You can pick up a 1 terabyte SSD for a reasonable cost, where I think my first 120 gigabyte SSD was $250.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
For the longest time, their SSDs were about $2 a gigabyte, and then they dropped down to $1 a gigabyte. Everyone's like, "Oh, finally is the time." And I'm looking at the prices now. It looks like you can get anything from like 20 cents a gigabyte. So it's
crazy. It's great.
Yeah, it's about in line with a traditional hard drive. Obviously, you get 500 gigs. I'm sorry, the price point, 500 gig traditional hard drive is about the same price as a 128 gig SSD. So obviously the storage is there, but the price is definitely comparable now. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
And there you go. So PlayStation, Sony, they're moving over to the SSD, really going to help when it comes to, playing those games and, kind of doing these things. The next upgrade they mentioned, AMD third generation 8-core Ryzen processor. Trying to think what the PlayStation had before. I don't think it was an 8-core. I think it was a 4-core processor.
I think you're right. I think it was quad-core.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is better. And it's custom. It's a custom. It's not exactly Ryzen that you have in your computer. As long as the games will support 8 cores, that's fantastic.
That's kind of the thing that separates console, because everyone's thinking, wow, the console has such bad specs compared to a PC. But that's something that I think a lot of people overlook when they look at just raw numbers, is that it has the benefit of being one set of hardware that that game developers can really say, this is what we're working with, we can optimize for this, as opposed to the PC market where there's millions of combination of hardware and you can't optimize for any of them, or you can try your best, but
absolutely right. And that's why the walled garden of Apple is successful the way it is, because it is a walled garden. And the same thing with the consoles. And that's important. It's not just about brute force firepower. How you optimize, how you write your instructions, how you write your code is stupid important when it comes to getting the most bang out of your hardware. And this is where consoles are extremely, extremely good.
Yeah. And on top of that, I forgot to mention that, yes, it's an 8-core, but it's also, I think it may be a lot of people's first time on the 7-nanometer architecture, whereas Intel is still working with the 14 or 12. I don't recall what the latest one is. I know they wanted to ship down to 10, but AMD has already started working on the 7-nanometer, so they will be a lot more efficient when they kind of do their thing. So that's good for sure. And with that being said, the next thing I want to do a reaction on, and this is something that the gentleman Mark Cerny, by the way, is the person that we keep kind of randomly mentioning. Mark Cerny, he mentioned that it will include a custom unit for 3D audio, and he mentioned that audio is going to be a huge part when it comes to, and hopefully, Dariush, you can hear me? Oh, but unfortunately, I can't hear you, so maybe the headset died. There we go. Hey, I can hear you now.
Yeah, just lost you there for a second. That's the downside to wireless.
Hey, we saw it live. All right, so I don't know where you lost me, but let's just go ahead and pick it up, and we're going to go to break here in about 2 minutes. So let's either be quick or we'll just summarize real quick. But first things first, 7 nanometer, first time a lot of people 7 nanometer instead of the 14. That's good. The next one is custom unit for 3D audio. Mark Cerny, the CEO or the executive who gave this interview, said that the PlayStation 4 largely ignored the audio segment of gaming, and he said that that's going to be really a priority of PlayStation 5. It's going to have its own custom 3D audio. So I don't know anything about 3D audio, but it's nice to hear that audio is going to be at the forefront of the next console.
Yeah, I think so. A big part of my Rainbow Six playing is using these headphones that are actually 3D capable, so I can hear directionally, who's coming up on me to shoot me.
I think I tried that. I had Turtle Beaches a long time ago when I used to play Call of Duty, I think was the game I was playing. And, when you talk about unfair advantages, like there's something about plugging in your console and picking up a controller and just getting into it. And then there's getting headphones like the ones you're currently wearing. And it's like, I can hear them walk halfway across the map and I know where they're coming. Like it's almost unfair, the difference a good 3D audio headset can actually make. So
absolutely, it made my game playing a little less embarrassing.
Definitely good to hear. So okay, and we're going to go to break here in about 30 seconds. So when we come back, we're going to continue on with the PlayStation 5 real quick and mention I guess just real quick, backwards compatibility and let's see. Oh, and by the way, one thing that we didn't mention with the PlayStation 4 Pro to the prototype of the PlayStation 5, they mentioned that loading screens went from 15 seconds to 0.8 seconds. More to the point with the hard drive to solid state drive, kind of comparison.
Yeah.
So definitely good there. So music is going to be playing in the background. Dariush will be right back with you. Oh, and then when we come back, we'll talk about PlayStation 5 supporting 8K, not 4K, 8K, and if that even matters. And yeah, you just saw the head shake there from Dariush. So everyone will be right back. More Computer America, more Derakhshani. And we have a lot more to talk about. So everyone, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, hey, welcome back into the program. If you miss any part of our conversation with Dariush, any part of, well, any show, wherever podcasts are heard, search Computer America and we should pop right up. Now, with that being said, we continue on with Dariush. Dariush, thank you for, of course, coming on and continuing on. And right before the break, we were just about to get into obviously, screen resolution, the sexiest of topics. It really, really brings the groupies out. But 4K has been kind of the name of the game. Apple, of course, came out with their 5K monitors just to one up everyone, literally. And yeah, 4K seem to be the thing. How do you think 8K plays into this whole thing? Is it just, again, maybe extending the shelf life of the PlayStation 5, or is it truly an innovation in display technology?
I think 8K is something you won't even notice unless you have a ginormous screen that you're very, 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 very close to. 4K right now, you don't notice the difference between HD res and 4K unless your screen is probably over 50 or 60 inches and you're sitting, 8 feet away from it. That's when you'll really start noticing the 4K resolution. So I have a 4K TV, and sometimes my DirecTV, because AT&T is such a bear, sometimes the DirecTV hardware dumps back out to HD, and I can't tell with where my TV is, how far away I sit until I get up and get closer to it. I'm like, oh no, I've got to rejigger my DirecTV box, which I want to throw into the pool to be 4K again. So it's great that it supports 8K and that it has the power to do so. But unless you're stupid rich, you're not going to have an 8K screen anytime soon. And I don't know if the content's going to be really 8K-able for
just like
a whole generation.
Yeah, just like kind of now, I think the 4K content is rather limited. I think a lot of the 4K content that you would be digesting on a 4K TV is simply HD content that is upscaled, or just kind of they do some kind of algorithm in the background that kind of duplicates pixels and makes it appear 4K, but it's not truly 4K. I think 8K is actually a pretty good number, and I'm looking through these different articles here. They're saying 8K is, Nvidia and both AMD are saying, quote, it's perfect for the human eye. I have no doubt that's marketing, but at the same time, I think that a lot of movies, and you'd probably know this better than I do, are shot natively in 8K, and then they're sized down and compressed into 4K or whatever movie screen resolution it is. Like 8K is what like the Red camera is shooting and things like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, it depends on your frame rate. A lot of things are actually shot in 4K or even what's called 3.5K. One of the more popular cameras on the market is the Arri Alexa, which shoots at believe it or not 3200 typically, depending on your frame rate. But the it's actually kind of a misconception. I have to say, shooting at 8K, most people will shoot at 4K. Requirements for Netflix, for example, if you're airing something on Netflix, they do want you to produce at 4K.
Right.
So that's becoming a standard for the streaming industry, which is good. But the 8K becomes prohibitive in a lot of different ways, bottlenecks and throughput and bandwidth. And post-production, it's 4 times the size of 4K, which is 4 times the size of HD. So it presents a lot of issues to deal with. So while I agree a lot of stuff is upscaled, and your TV, if you have a 4K TV, is upscaling HD content to 4K, it's I think 8K is still a few
Yeah.
number of years, not just a few. I think it's a good 4 or 5 years off from being even scratching at the mainstream, which is what 4K is doing right now. Is it's kind of scratching at the mainstream. And I have 4K DirecTV, but there's one channel
Yeah.
that's 4K content, and it's all nature documentaries and stuff like that, which are great and they're really pretty to watch. But some sports are broadcast in 4K, but that's about it. So aside from the streaming platforms, which then suffer from compression issues, it's still I think 8K is just it's a load right now, and I think it's nothing for us to really consider as a
But that's
purchasing
kind of the thing
decisions are
about
made.
but that's kind of thing. That's the kind of thing about the PlayStation 5, though, is that it's one console and you're going to get 8K compatibility whether you like it or not. And hey, a lot, like you said, a lot of us won't be able to utilize it, but it'll be there if if you happen to spend $15,000 on a TV. Hey, you'll be good to go. So, and I gotta say, the only 8K content I know for sure that is coming out within the next year is the 2020 Olympics in Japan. They have said that they're going to broadcast in 8K. So unless
That's amazing.
you're
That's actually amazing. I hadn't heard that before.
yeah, so unless you're a Super Olympic fan and you want to see it in 8K, then that's really the only thing you're going to be watching that will actually be supported or natively supported. So check that out. All right. So with that being said, let's see. So just to run through some of the other, they're not really hardware things. It's just PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility. So any PS4 or PS4 Pro owners, a lot of the games that you purchased lately will be allowed to play on the PS5. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's a huge advantage. When we went from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, there was a lot of fretting and hand-wringing because of that backwards compatibility. I think it's a horrible idea not to be backwards compatible.
Yeah, they slowly rolled out backwards compatibility over the course of like the year following. Like after everyone ditched the Xbox 360, then they started to roll out backwards compatibility, which is not the way to do it. But
they really shot themselves in the foot, and I think it's one of the reasons why they lost so much market share coming off the 360, and now the PlayStation is 2-1 the favorite over the Xbox One.
Right. And so obviously, just going through the article, and we're going to switch topics now, but the PlayStation 5, by the way, that's just kind of what everyone's calling it because there's no official name for it yet. It is still in the prototype development phase. And yeah, next year, and I'm sure E3 this year, we will, hear a lot more about it. But hey, like I said, I would not be surprised with keyboard and mouse support, and hey, I'm looking forward to the next version of PlayStation because I think it's about time.
Yeah, I think so too, which is kind of sad because now I got to find the money to buy it because my son's going to force me to. But I would be shocked if it does not have keyboard and mouse support.
Oh, for sure.
Period.
And but hey, you have a year and a half to save up. So there you go.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now with that being said, and actually because we were just talking about displays a little bit, and we can, kind of segue that into your first topic that you sent over, OLED, which is weird. This article is weird because you've mentioned, and this is kind of, you've mentioned it, and that's why it's kind of stuck in my head, is that OLEDs are some of the best screens that you can get. There's quantum, QLED, and things like that, but OLED is like, that's what you recommended. What's going on here?
This is a case of me being sad to see this. OLED is by far the better picture that you're going to get. It is without a doubt. QLED and all the others, they're better than past generation LEDs, but they're still the same sort of technology, which is there's a backlighting. There's an outside lighting to the screen, where OLED is what's called an emissive pixel, meaning the pixel is the light source itself. LED, the pixel is there, and something else has to light that pixel for you to see it. and that's why you don't get very good blacks necessarily, and there might be areas of your panel like on my TV, which I paid a lot of money for a while ago. The size of the screen where the light is coming from tends to be a little bit brighter in dark dark scenes, and that it bugs me. So OLED doesn't do that. The blacks are rich. It's gorgeous.
Right.
And I've heard some some misgivings about burn-ins and things like that previously, but this is the one of the first times where there's an honest to goodness sort of, here it is in the flesh. It has burn-in. Now this article is about this TV. This picture was taken from a TV in a Fry's Electronics. So that TV has been playing the same screen over and over, and that same demo over and over again. So I can understand that's not going to be your home use, but still, it's a little dismaying to see that burn-in is definitely possible with OLED, like it was with plasma a while ago, and that's what made me switch from plasma to LED, was the fear, that anxiety of burn-in. So it's a concern, and OLED, the last generation, the pricing has been dropping steadily as the new generation is coming to market. So I've been looking at it going, yeah, maybe I should pick one up. And now reading this, I'm a little sad because I don't know if I want to pick one up just yet.
Yeah, and going through the article, they mentioned this one at Fry's Electronics, and then at the same time, they mentioned the SID Display Week 2018 also suffered burn-in. Yeah, and actually, this one line probably gives some, quantifies it a bit. A test of LG's OLED offerings by TV review sites Rtings, never heard of them, I'm sorry, but mimicking casual viewing patterns also showed signs of burn-in after 4,000 hours of display time. And let's say you're a typical family, and I'm just going to pull this number off the top of my head out of nowhere. Let's say your family watches 4 hours of TV throughout the entire day, actively watching or not watching, 4 hours a day. 1,000 days, so about 3 years, you are going to get burn-in. Yeah, and of course, you can go long or short, but and like they said, it depends on what you watch. They have like a pixel refresher thing that reduces the lifespan of your TV, which they said is not a solution, but it's something. Yeah, I think if people are buying an OLED today, they're going to expect it to last longer than 3 years, I guess. I know that I would.
So. I mean, at $2,000, you want your TV to last more than 3 years. That's just, it's expected. And this is worry. And one of the things, I have a 12-year-old who sometimes, more than sometimes, forgets to turn the TV off after they're done playing, or they'll let the PlayStation sit, and that screen is gonna burn in eventually. So one thing to remember is always turn on your screensaver on your game consoles. Set your TV to game mode, which will turn on screensaver. My DirecTV has a screensaver, but still it only shows the same dozen or so images over time. So it has me worried enough that I'd rather spend that $2,000 on something else.
I forgot that was the purpose of screensavers. You're absolutely right. Was to avoid burn-in. And I remember we had a kind of a projector TV, like it was like the big box, and they were heavy as all heck. And I left it on multiple nights playing Halo. And I remember even with the TV off and everything off, you could still see the image of the Halo HUD up on the screen. And I was like, whoops, that's definitely not a good thing. Yeah. So it happens. You don't want it from modern TVs. And by the way, LG, their previous statement on OLED TVs were that they last 30,000 hours, 10 years, with an average viewing of 8 hours. And so even they say that they can do even more than what I kind of threw out there, and they are still getting burned in. So not good.
Now, I wouldn't say it's an epidemic that all screens are being burned in, and
Right.
again, this article is honing in on a very specific use of that TV. So I think being smart and diligent and not having a 12-year-old who will leave your TV on is going to help you avoid burn-in for sure. And I have an iMac in I think it's about 7 years old now, and beautiful screen, beautiful hardware, but it's burned in. You can
Oof.
see ghosting and images stay. I log out of my computer, and what I did the last half hour is still sort of on the screen. So it's it's just a display issue overall, and
Yeah.
LEDs do suffer from that display issues as well. The older the technology gets, so it's just I would love for OLED uh, to be better.
Yeah, no, and that's I'm sure that they're working on it, and they did say that this was like a mid-range model, so maybe the higher end models would wouldn't have the same kind of issue. But like you said, this is a display TV and not a home use case, but something to definitely keep in mind. And hey, maybe keep your receipt handy so that 3 years later, if the 10 years don't hold up, you can complain to someone effectively. So there you go. There's that. We have like about 10 minutes left, so we can get into some of the other topics you have here. And I'm actually interested in this one, women in CG. And, we've had a lot of institutions come on the show. The one off the top of my head is Intel, trying to promote not only diversity, but women in technology and STEM fields. And just, it's actually surprising. And I'm not saying that what they're doing is bad. I'm saying that the results of getting minorities and women into STEM fields, it's not that effective because the rates are actually going down. Like the rates at which women in particular are graduating with STEM degrees has actually gone down since like the 80s. It's not what you want to see. So it's an issue that I'm kind of keeping on the back burner. I like to see progress on it, but to see you bring it up, wasn't expecting it. So what is this?
Well, a very good organization in my field, Women in Animation, certainly champions having more women in the field. And it's interesting because in academic programs, artistic animation programs, there's actually a lot more women than men enrolled in these programs. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, one program could have 65% women, 35% men, but the industry is flipped on that. The industry, you have more like 65, 70% men
Mm-hmm.
and 30% women. And these are numbers I'm just illustrating with. I
Right.
think you'll find much better metrics if you contact or take a look into women in animation. So the disparity is still different, but it is changing generationally. I think it'll be different. We're seeing more women in creative fields in academia. Should start translating that into the field, into the industry. As far as STEM goes, it's disheartening to see that number lowering. I hope it's not due to any issues with access and more just the pendulum nature of statistics and human nature. So I'd love to see that growing because diversity, it's not just about seeing different colors and different genders in the workplace. It's about perspectives, and I think a workplace benefits a lot more from having people from different walks of life and different perspectives because that brings a much better, more holistic sort of view into what you're doing as a company or as a program or what may be. So it's nice to see more women in computer graphics, and I personally attribute a little bit of that into the creative part of computer graphics as opposed to the science part of uh, because of that large that larger amount of women studying in creative fields. So I think part of that could be attributed to that, and part of that to the STEM thing. But it's good to see that, because I think having different perspectives in the industry will help the industry become a little bit more well-rounded and a little less jagged, in a way where it's tunnel visioned into the go get 'em attitude, or the that's not even the right word, but just different perspectives.
Yeah,
I think are important.
And I've seen a number of articles when it comes to organizations. I'm going to call a couple out here that I know I've done articles on, such as Uber and Facebook. Some of these that are really behind the scenes, very white, very male. And I think what you were talking about with the the idea that different walks of life, when there's not enough representation of that diversity, then people who come in with that background, they go, hey, this doesn't appeal to X market, or this can be done X way. The majority is going to say that's not normal, that's not the right way, quote unquote, when it's just a different way. You know what I mean? Like if the majority is saying this is the right way, then yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have people in your organization that can bring their life experience to it, I don't want to. I mean, I'm a white guy. I have an immigrant perspective and all that sort of stuff. But on surface, I'm just another middle-aged white guy, and it's unfortunate that maybe I'm seen that way. But I certainly understand. I can't even go into that perspective. There's such a long history of underrepresentation. I have never been at face value part of that, aside from being Iranian and an immigrant. I'm considered white, so it's hard for me to put myself in those shoes, but I can definitely say that I feel having different perspectives from different genders and different ethnic groups is important in all fields. When I was 20, 30 years ago studying this field, very white, very male dominated, and that breeds that inbreeds in a way, a particular way of thinking. So diversity, again, is not just a liberal sort of a whistle blowing, you don't have enough of this or you don't have enough of that color or gender. It's just literally about making your organization better by allowing different views of what you're doing to be heard and to be felt.
No, I completely agree. And by the way, I found the chart that I was kind of referring to, and this is part of. Let's see. I'm sure it's come from a source. I'll find the source in a second. But you can see here towards the bottom, computer science is this second light blue line. And around the 1985-87 was the high point of graduating with computer science degrees. And then since then, it has dropped back down to 2014 to some pretty low levels. And that's kind of the opposite trend you'd expect with so many organizations encouraging women to get into STEM and computer science fields and things like that. So a lot of work to be done. And, hey, there's nothing wrong with having your organization, especially when you're a large organization, to have, the people who create things look kind of like the audience that you are presenting for. And your audience is not, strictly white men. It is, it's women and a lot of different things. So, and by the way,
absolutely.
Thank you for turning me on to this, because I'm drafting email right now. We're going to invite them on the show, see if they want to come on the show and talk about this. So,
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. WIA, Women in Animation. Check it out if you're interested. They're a fantastic organization, and not just limited to women. Men can be part of this, or non-binary genders, which is something I'm still wrapping my head around because I'm an old guy. Everybody is welcome to be part of this.
Absolutely. There you go. And there you go. And by the way, Georgetown Public Policy Review was the source of that graph. So there you go. Just had to get the source out. And yep, you're right. We're going to invite them on, and we're going to have a conversation with them. So hopefully, hey, if you're listening, WI, get in touch with us. So with that being said, we have about 3-4 minutes. This should be plenty of time to get into our last topic: major mistakes when building a new PC. Clearly, we are going to run out of time, and Dariush, I will stop you when time is up. Obviously, well, hopefully you can hear me, Dariush. But okay, yeah, I'll stop you when time is up. But so about 2 minutes now. But let's just get started, and then whatever we leave out, we'll say, folks, go to the website and check out the rest of them if you are interested. But please, let's just jump right into avoid these tips when building a new PC.
Yeah, this is a fantastic article. It was a lot of fun, and it's mostly anecdotes from readers that pop in and talk about it. I could literally talk about building PCs every single show for every single minute. It's a lot of fun. It's a pain for sure, but it is a lot of fun. And it's just silly little things, especially if you're water cooling. You want to make sure you check all your tubing. Same goes when you're wiring things. There have been many times where I'm swapping out a video card and I forget to plug in the auxiliary power. And I turn everything on and it's a blank screen. I'm freaking out. This is fried and that's not working. And it's just a matter of I forgot to plug in the power. Or I'll plug in my hard drives and I'll forget to plug in the SATA cable or the power cable, one or the other. It's like, oh no, my drive is toast and I've lost all my data and I want to cry, and all these things happen. It's just while you have your case open, take a look. Just like a captain and a first officer on an airplane goes through that checklist to make sure that they don't kill 300 people on that airplane. Do that with your PC. Make sure everything's connected. And it's a simple sort of thing to do, but make sure things are connected. USB-C cable, motherboard, my motherboard header to a USB outlet. I plugged it in backwards, and then during booting, my BIOS was freaking out, voltage protection, all these things. I'm like, oh my god, this thing is messed up, and I started freaking out, looking through the manual. And literally just look at the cable. Oh, yeah. Duh.
Those are all aspects of building your computer, and trust me, as soon as you build your first one, you will have your own horror stories. But yeah, we'll include a link to that article in the show notes. And hey, we're going to have to leave it there. Dariush, music playing in the background. If people want to hear more from you, where's the best place they can go to hear more of you, your opinions, and you?
Every now and then I'll pop up online with an article here or there, but if you're looking for me, Twitter is probably the best place to find me, or I've got some YouTube videos. Just look up my name.
Perfect. All right, and everyone, will include a link to those as well in the show notes. Hey, Dariush, thank you for joining us. It was a great show.
My pleasure.
Really, really fun. And hey, I hope to see you here next month. And yeah, a lot to talk about. So everyone, until next time, thank you so much, Computer America. Have a great one. Bye-bye.